And I brought the project to our wonderful board, and they all jumped on the opportunity, because this is something that we've been looking forward to do, something that would take it one step beyond Altoona for the education effort that we've been doing.
Okay, thank you. Carl, the music is so exciting, and the concept of it being with the poem of Hiawatha. Would this ever have been in a ballet? Has it ever been scored for a ballet on these movements with the poem set? Do you know?
Well, if it has been, I'm not familiar with it. However, there actually is a Hiawatha opera by Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who was English. He was an African composer, and it's quite a marvelous piece, and it is available. So other composers set Hiawatha as well.
Maestro, I know that you're finishing your third season here in Altoona, and when you were introduced this evening, we heard about your passion and your commitment for education. What are some of the ways that you've been able to manifest that passion in action with the symphony during your 3 years here in Altoona?
I think what we've been doing so far is we take very small steps. I think small steps are wonderful, because if you take big steps, you really don't lose, you lose track. When you take small steps, you know where you're going. We first started, a lot of collaboration with children's choir for our Christmas concert, and then we added a high school chorus into it. I'm very much into vocals music, because I think it's the most organic music making method. It comes from your body. Even when you play an instrument, you still have to sing, you still have to get the air coming out. And then other than that, we went on and did a brass ensemble for Christmas, and then we have two wonderful collaborations. One with the Juniata College last year, and then we just finished this last concert that last weekend, which would be the Penn State Percussion Ensemble. One little step at a time, but gradually we have started master classes. We have started the ASAP program, our Altoona Symphony Apprentice Program. These are things that we do in-house. We're bringing people in. Now it's time. This is the first step for us to take it outside. I'm very excited about this opportunity, and thanks to the humanities. It's just wonderful that we have this opportunity to be a very small voice. It's a very rare opportunity for a small orchestra like us. We have a very small budget, but we do our best.
Carl, first I want to thank you for letting me go up there and conduct earlier. It was a very unique experience. My question for you doesn't exactly relate to Dvorak, but it's more of your experience. And as I've heard before, you've traveled around the world, or you're culturally diverse. Have you seen any similar experiences, like with Dvorak going to another country to explore the cultural aspects of societies and incorporating into other composers' music?
I think one of the great things about America, and I just would reiterate that, is the uniqueness of this experiment of assimilation. During the 19th and the 20th centuries, there was unprecedented immigration here. Towards the end of the century, the 19th century, 500,000 people were streaming through the ports of New York. And this never happened at any other country at any other time in history, anything on this scale. So it's just an extraordinary part of our heritage, and when we see the results of this cross-fertilization of styles in the arts, we have a lot to celebrate about. Okay? Just to add a personal matter to that, I've conducted in Germany, and when I've conducted music by German composers over there, there's been just a sense of identification with that music that's astounding. It's a little more challenging for all of us to embrace the wide diversity of cultures around it. But I think that's part of our calling as listeners to this music. We should, because it's really part of the legacy, the glorious part of America.
So, Carl, one last question for you. Dvorak seemed so ahead of his time in the sense that he was willing to take bits and pieces of music from other cultures, and particularly I'm thinking about the Negro spirituals. I mean, we're talking late 1800s, which was a very controversial time to begin with. So tell us a little bit more about that and how that impacted the way that his music was received.
Well, the popular image of American Negroes at that time was one that was referential to the unfortunate history of slavery that had preceded it. So there was no culture of the American Negroes other than that which was represented in minstrel shows or transformed a little bit in the music of Stephen Foster, or what we encounter in vaudeville beginning in the 1880s. But unfortunately, American Negroes were depicted usually as laughing stocks, as well as the American Indians as well. So there really was something kind of courageous in doing this.
So, Carl, as we prepare to wrap up our program, we'd like you to leave us with a final thought.
My final thought is this. Actually, there are just two parts to it. It's rare that a work comes along that appears at a nexus in cultural history, such as the Dvorak New World Symphony, and that can be looked at from so many different vantage points. We talked a little bit earlier about sort of a feminist theme that runs through it, that Dvorak was brought over here by a very unctuous, outspoken, and visionary patroness, Jeanette Thurber. We could also look at it from an imperialist standpoint, about a story that incorporates the music of dispossessed and subjugated peoples. We could also look at it from the standpoint of yellow journalism at the time, which we didn't even begin to get into because the journalists then were so fanciful and they would write about the symphony as though they were the authors of it, sort of like our writers of the National Enquirer. But the last point that I would make, what I would have everybody take away, is that I came to this symphony not as a musicologist or as a conductor, but as a teenage trumpet player. And when I played the notes that you just heard, in fact, fellas, you played them beautifully, the notes that go, bee-pum-pum, bee-dum-pum, when the trumpets are all out there by themselves at the very ending. But I didn't know as much as what I know now about the symphony, but I sensed that it was an apotheotic moment. I might as well have been hand gliding over the Grand Canyon at that moment. And I think thrills like that are available to all of the musicians here on the stage and also all of our audiences. So what my biggest hope is that you'll want to multiply them in your own lives.
Thank you again, Carl. I am sure that I speak for our audience when I say what a wonderful, eye-opening experience this has been. You really have helped us to experience and to understand this classical music in a way that perhaps we have never experienced it before, and it has been just wonderful. So special thanks to Carl Middleman, to Teresa Chung, and to the Altoona Symphony Orchestra for a wonderful, wonderful performance. We also want to thank our audience, especially those who were our guest conductors. Our audience was really engaged. They sang, they clapped, and they asked some really wonderful questions that just helped us to learn all the more about this wonderful composer and his music and what it was that really inspired him. We want you to know that Humanities on the Road is a collaboration between the Pennsylvania Humanities Council and the Pennsylvania Cable Network. And if you'd like to know more about the program, about our broadcast schedule, if you'd like to just get some really cool bonus material and continue the conversation that we've started with this particular program, we'd encourage you to check out the website. It is humanitiesontheroad.org, humanitiesontheroad.org. That's where you'll be able to find out when all the programs air. You'll be able to see some behind-the-scenes interviews, and, well, there's just a lot of cool stuff, so we would encourage you to check that out. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of Humanities on the Road, Dvorak's New World. I'm Tracy Matisak. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.